whenever you would like.
Okay, thanks. Ready? 3, 2. Welcome to Prime Properties. I'm Michael Morris. Sitting in with me, Stacy Plybon. Stacy, how are you?
I am doing so great today. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I see that you're very chipper because you brought somebody with you today. Would you like to introduce your friend slash guest slash
I would
friend?
love that opportunity. Thank you so much. I have brought with us today Tim Adams with First Federal Community Bank. And he is fantastic and has a lot to tell us today. So I'm super excited. How are you, Tim?
I'm doing great, Stacy. Thank you.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
I've got to ask this question, Tim. How did you know Stacy? Have you guys done deals together? Are you one of her neighbors that's like cutting her grass for her, or what's going on?
No, we don't cut grass together, but we have worked together in the past, and we work together currently on a couple things, and make us good friends and do the business.
Absolutely.
So you're going to be used to this show, just this conversation between Stacy and yourself. You guys are going to be good.
Yes, absolutely, Michael.
All right. Fill people in a little bit on First Federal Community Bank. Give us a little bit of a lowdown, who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name's Tim Adams. I work for First Federal Community Bank as a mortgage loan officer. My NMLS number is 438939. We are an equal housing lender. And my phone number is 614-657-7358. Should there be any questions after the show, you want to give me a call?
And that'll get them right to you.
Absolutely, directly to me.
Perfect.
Yep.
I'd like to start off with an easy question. How are things going in the lending world right now?
Things are great. We expect 2019 to be another fantastic year, just like 2018, based on the current interest rates and loan programs that are out there. People should check into it, take advantage of it, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of hubbub about interest rates. You always see that, and it's like this media scare tactic or something for some reason, but interest rates are fine.
Interest
People
rates are
fine.
fantastic. Interest rates
Right.
are actually lower today than they were in January.
Thank you.
Well, you do always see that, especially on the news. And again, if it's in the media, I always tend to distrust it, especially this show. But you always see that they throw that interest rate thing like you've got to do it now. If you don't lock these in now, almost like there's a panic and it forces more people into the market. But it's almost like it scares people off if they're thinking, well, I'm not ready to go right now. That's not really how that works, right?
No, it's not exactly right. The difference when you hear interest rates are moving, it may not typically affect the buyer as much as it does the bank on the back end, because the interest rates, in so many words, they do move. It's just, are they going to move from 1/4 to 0.5% overnight? That's possible, but in the same sense, when you hear that they moved, it doesn't mean that they did move 1/4 or 0.5% overnight. So on the back end, it's moving on the bank's end rather than more so the public. And sometimes you do see a rate increase that the public should have maybe locked in prior to it moving. So it is a guess on my end on whether or not you should lock right now. You know what I mean? It's like you should probably lock when you have a contract, not to gamble with the idea of moving into a higher rate.
Right.
That could happen.
When people are looking at this, also when they're looking at the fluctuation of the rate is, sometimes the rate is 1/4%, or it's not like it's going from 6 to 12. They almost make it sound like it's end of the world if you don't lock it in.
Yeah,
now.
not typical. And just to kind of give you an idea of what's ahead for 2019 is the Federal Reserve just pledged that we were not going to see a rate increase in 2019. And we've had 5 consecutive quarters of rate increases.
Yeah.
So, and they're low.
They are.
They're lower, like I mentioned earlier. They're lower today than they were in January.
Yeah, and we actually talked about this, when I was on the show with Marty. We talked about rates, and he got a good chuckle out of that, because my parents bought their house in like 89, 90, something like that. And I think 12% was like they got into a lottery with their lender and was able to get 12%.
And they felt good about it.
They felt good about it. It was a great deal for them. So, and Marty, I think, spoke of higher rates when he bought his house in
Well, he was talking about,
1920, or whatever it was.
Yeah, when they were first figuring out how to build a house, Marty bought one. But if you look at the history of what those rates were, I mean, we're good. We might not be today at an all-time low, but this is a very aggressive rate for people to lock in. And even if it moves up a little bit here and there, you're not going to see these rates, down the line. They're not going to change that drastically.
Yeah.
In your favor,
not at all.
anyway.
Yeah, we're going to be just fine. Folks have nothing to worry about. They should definitely take advantage now, because, we're not going to see a rate increase this year, but it's only probably going to go up. We really don't want it to go
Sure.
down.
Well, they expect some change, maybe even a slight rate increase in 2020. That's kind of the projections. But 2019, they don't see anything happening.
That's right.
So it's a great time to
it's
make
great.
a move.
Absolutely, it is.
You have been. How long have you been in the industry?
20 plus years, too long to go into.
Yeah. Well, you don't look that old.
Oh, thank you.
You have the look of a
No,
person
you
who's
gotta
well weathered in this industry. But what are the changes that you've seen in this industry in that 20 years?
Oh my goodness, there's been so much change. I guess one of the biggest changes that we've seen is the documentation that is required now. Obviously,
When you say that, is that based on where we were, say, the early 2000s up to 2006, 2007? Is
Yeah.
that why you're seeing more of that?
yeah, and that's just it's kind of a one of those things where in the past you could do a loan and not need a whole bunch of
What
paperwork.
did they say? If you could fog a mirror, you could get a mortgage loan?
Something
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know if
I've
I've
heard
heard
that.
that one, but that's pretty good. As long as you're breathing, right?
Yeah.
Now they would like to make good decisions, and
Sure.
rightfully so,
Yeah.
because you remember in 2008, 2009, 2010 where things kind of started to just crumble, and it just crippled the mortgage business. The homes were not selling.
Well, new builds were also suffering because they had this pipeline. I had friends that had 2 houses and made $50,000, and I thought, I don't even understand what you're doing. It was
Yeah.
like homes were looked at as an investment, like to buy, like almost like a stock
Sure.
to buy more of them.
Yes.
But if things took a turn in your job or the economy, you were stuck with 2 properties and you couldn't even afford the one.
Absolutely. So we look to make good, sound decisions. It's certainly not difficult if you qualify to
Sure.
buy a house.
Sure.
So for what it's worth, yeah, there's more documentation to answer your question as far as change goes. Probably change, and we have laxed some on some of the credit score requirements. So people that might have a little bit lower score still qualify
Yeah.
to buy a house.
Well, you brought up people that are buying and the credit score might, that skew a little bit more to open it up. But what are banks looking for when they're finding a potential buyer?
Sure. Well, we want to see verifiable income nowadays, which kind of touches on, a little more documentation now. We want a verifiable income buyer. Someone with a credit score maybe around the 580 or a little higher would be best. However, with First Federal Community Bank, I will say this. Our little motto amongst us in our offices is, we're not going to say no. We might say not now,
Yeah.
but we're not going to say no. We want to work with you. There's nothing more rewarding to me than to have a borrower come to me and say, Tim, we want to buy a house. And I'm telling them, okay, well, unfortunately not now. However, if you follow this plan, if we work together, and in a few months, we hand you the keys to your new house after some hard work between the two of us, there's nothing more rewarding than that, man.
That's exactly
It
right.
really is something else to watch, the 2 daughters or the 2 boys say, this is my room.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Do you get pictures?
It's rewarding.
I always wondered about, because I know I've seen some of the lenders that I just know as friends that's what they do, and they'll get mail to their house or to their office, and it's pictures of the kids
Yeah.
in front of the house and all that. Like, that used to be a big deal. I remember every house that any of my family, they would always take a picture in the front yard, like this was day number 1. Do you
Right.
get those in the mail?
Not so much in the mail, but emailed every
Oh,
once
that's a
in a
good
while.
point. Maybe I'm really an old school guy. Yeah,
You're
nobody
not
has
gonna-
stamps
You're
apparently.
not going to date me back there.
Yeah.
No, email and Facebook has really exploded with,
Sure.
the new home buyer pictures.
I see that with Stacy's
Yeah,
stuff a lot.
Stacy's
People that she's
fantastic
put
with
in the
that.
house.
Even the ones
love
that are
it.
selling their house, you
Yeah.
can see the smile on their face. It's a process.
It
And
is.
you are really accomplishing someone's dream,
Right.
and it's rewarding. It really is.
It's addictive. And we go through a lot on lending and real estate aspect, realtor aspect. You go through a lot, and there's all these moving parts, and there's all these stressful times.
Ups and downs.
Ups and downs. It's definitely a roller coaster, but man, you forget all of that when you're done and you see their smiles and
You
you
see their smile.
like you said, their dream. I sound so cheesy, but I promise
Well, I
it's
saw
true.
Tim's face pop when he was talking. Like you could tell there's emotion involved in it
It
because
is.
I think one of the things on the show we're always talking about the market and conditions and all that, but we don't always touch on the people. And the people are really what makes this all worth it, because otherwise it's paperwork
awful.
and checks sliding back and forth.
Yes.
But when you change somebody's life and their family's life,
Yeah.
you're important to the process at one
yeah.
point, and then you kind of drop off. But you can drive by that house and say, I helped put that person in there.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I still hear from people that I have helped 10 years ago, you know, just a quick email or a text,
Yeah.
checking in, things like that. It's fun.
It is.
It's rewarding.
What is that your favorite part of the job?
That's got to be my favorite part of the job. I mean, it really
It
is.
can't be paperwork. It would drive me nuts to do all the paperwork.
There
you
is a
guys do.
ton of paperwork,
So
and
much.
that's just part of, you know, part of the job. But yeah, man, I don't know. 20 years ago when I got into the business, I didn't necessarily see that part of it as much. But as you get a little bit older, as you own a house, as you have a family, and you start to see these families buy a house and settle in, and the smiles that take place, and you know the late night phone calls that all come together, and then you see them get the keys.
Oh, yeah.
Man, that's a great feeling.
What's the process? When the process is over, everybody wins, right?
Everybody wins.
Well, yeah.
One direction, you know,
Yeah.
that's just where we head. And no matter what, the ups, the downs, the late night phone calls, it
Oh,
all
yeah.
takes that time, and then we get there. And it's a huge smile in the end for most of
Well, and
them.
that's what's helpful for me, having somebody like Tim on my team, so to speak, is, you know, I came to him with a gal who had fixed income and whatnot, and he immediately was like, well, there's these programs, you know, there's this program that I think she would qualify for. You know, that's immediately blank, 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 extra paperwork, you know, extra
Sure.
time on the timeline. But he didn't bat an eye at it. He understood the situation that she was in and knew that that would be beneficial to her. And that just stole my heart immediately, because it wasn't another one of those, send me your information and I'll process. It was like, oh, obviously she's going to need some help here. I've got this program. Let's get her together and working on things. And that's really great for me, because I'm front end too. I spend a lot of time as well as he does, and you do get attached to these people, and you get attached to their situations, and you try to use your expertise and all of the, you know, things that you have available to you to help them with their goal and obtain that goal of home ownership and whatever have you, and it's really refreshing to have that sincerity in another, you know, part of the whole
Part of your
process.
team.
Part of the team.
Someone you can rely on.
Yep. And
There's
he's always available, but ladies, he's married. He's not available that way, but
There's
he
a
is
lot of-
always
But he will
available.
approve your loan.
And-
Yes, there you go. There you go.
But he is always available, and that's fantastic too, because I work all the time, and to have somebody that I can rely on to shoot a text to, shoot an email to, and he fires one right back, he's right there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I want to ask, we're talking about the people outside of the process, and Tim said something before we started that I wrote this down because I thought I really want you to say this, because I think it will hit a nerve with some people. You said it still needs to be a handshake when you're doing these deals, because we kind of talked about, we've talked about in the past, Tim wasn't here, but we talked about how Zillow, people will go to Zillow or Realtor.com and they'll plug in what they're looking for, and now I found it and I'm just doing a transaction. But you said it has to be a handshake because there's got to be somebody you trust, right? I have to establish, I could trust that I bought a property online. I don't know what's going on with it. I don't know if I need help. But through this process, you want someone to walk you through it that knows what they're doing, right?
Absolutely. Even if you've bought 5 houses, 6 houses in your past, it's nice to have that sit down, the handshake, talk, get to know each other, and just figure out what's best for the customer.
Yeah.
You know, I've had customers come to me after being with a lender that didn't happen. You know, the loan just did not happen for whatever reason. And they're calling me desperate in the sense of, I have 2 weeks to close because I'm selling my house in 2 weeks. I have nowhere to go. We have a loan, and we've done several of these. We have a loan option for this type of situation on our portfolio loans, where we will review the loans that just don't fit for the normal guidelines. So conventional FHA, VA, USDA, they have their guidelines. And if you don't fit in those guidelines, and sometimes you don't find out that you don't fit until the last minute.
that last minute underwriting.
And you've been in the process for 30 days. and you're finding out 4 hours before you're supposed to close, you don't fit. We don't do that. We like to make sure that we figure out that you fit right now. And if you don't fit right now, we're going to find a portfolio option for you with our bank to make it fit. And the handshake comes down to that, just that. And I go back to portfolio because it's a small town bank.
Mhm.
We have a small town feel.
A lot of people don't know about that either.
No, it's kind of a
Well,
secret.
that's why I think that,
I like that.
again, we were talking off the air about this, but
Right.
you know, about everybody wants convenience. They want an app on their phone, or they want to fill
Sure.
something out and send it off. But when you're dealing with, I mean, this is the biggest purchase you'll ever make in your life.
Absolutely.
Other than having kids, nothing will affect your life like a home purchase.
Yeah, sure.
You can't just Google it, how do I buy a home or how do I get financing? You need to have somebody, like my lawyer used to always tell me, you need a lawyer, a doctor. He didn't say real estate, probably
What
because
about
he
a
was a
banker?
lawyer, but you do need a
Right.
banker. You need somebody to
You do.
take care of that, because it's not just getting the loan, it is, here are my questions, put me at ease before I get in this
Well,
situation.
During that handshake time, he's gathering information. The more information during those conversations, the more information that he can gather on your ideals, your mindset, your views, your intentions, things of that nature, he can better suit what his bank can offer to get you where you need to be. It's not always plug and play. Sometimes
That's
you
a-
have to have that.
That is a great point, Stacy, because when I'm having those conversations, whether it's one-on-one or on the phone, where you don't necessarily have that when you're doing a loan online,
No.
you know, they're sending you a list of what to send in, you send it in, you don't hear from anybody, they send you another list of what they need, you send it in, you still don't hear from anybody, and then they say you're going to go close your loan. And you've never met the person. A lot of times what you find when you're having that conversation is, what do they need? What do they want? Two separate things. I have that conversation with my kids all the time. What you need and what you want. You're going to probably get what you need and maybe get some of what you want. But some customers have a need. And that need may be something where they need a payment here rather than, you know, here.
Mhm.
And when we try to work together to determine, okay, here's the need, and let's cover that, the 3-bedroom, the 2 baths, the backyard. Let's make sure that that payment fits in your budget.
Yeah.
Whereas the want is the 4 bedrooms, the 3 bathrooms, the pool in the yard, the large,
The bass boat.
the bass boat,
Hey.
the pole barn,
Yeah.
right?
We talked about a lot of things off the air, and a bass boat is near and dear to your heart.
Come
We're
on.
going to get you there one day.
Thank
I
you.
promise.
We're gonna get you there.
So those are the wants, and now we just blew up the budget. When you just signed the paperwork, and now what?
Yeah.
Now you got to pay for it all.
Yeah, because we're the professionals, and we know what you want, but we're the professionals,
Yeah.
and we have to advise. We're your fiduciary. We're your confidant.
Yep. We want to make sure we cover your needs.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, because I just threw that thing in there in the middle about the handshake, but I thought it was important to touch on that because
Yeah.
we were kind of going down that road. Do people with an A+ credit score, do they need that to get approved these days? I know you kind of touched on it, but
Right.
it kind of delves into my second part of the question is, do they need an A+? If they don't, do you work with them to help with their credit score?
Great question. We loved working with A+ credit. That makes things easier in the sense that we don't have to jump through the hoops and maybe put a plan together. But in the same sense, like I said, we're never going to say no. It might be not now. And the ones that don't have the A+ credit are the ones that I get probably the most rewarding feelings from because it is a process. We help you get from point A to point B.
Well, it's got to be more fun to solve a problem, right?
It's a puzzle. That's how you look at it. You know, what's the missing piece or 2 pieces, and this is how we get there to find them and put them in place. And it's a process, and most of the time we get there.
Stace, did you have anything on that?
I wanted to add that you do get there, but they have to be prepared to do the work too.
Absolutely.
You know, you can lead them to water, right? But you can't make them drink. If they want it bad enough, we can lay out the stepping stones, and as long as they follow through, we can make it happen.
Typically, it's a
It's a team.
list. Yeah, it's a team effort, but it's a list from day one. Here's
Yes.
what we've got to do.
Step by step.
And it's not necessarily a list that you go gather.
Right.
It's a process for the next couple months. Here's what's on the list.
Yep.
And we're going to accomplish these milestones one at a time,
Right.
and eventually we're going to hand you keys.
That's right. Yeah.
But you're part of that, right? So you start that chain of events, and then you're still part of that. You don't just say, "Come back to me when you get this done."
Right, I'm not the type that says call this number, get
I've
it fixed,
actually
and
sat
come
through
back
one
to
of
me.
those where somebody said, "Oh, well, if if you take care of this and this and this, we'll get you approved. And then nothing, no follow up, no
No.
letter. And I'm just pointing that out because
That's a great point.
there are people out there that, you know, at the end of the day, they just want to close,
Yeah.
right? They just want to get the transaction done, but you guys don't do that.
We have a team dedicated to pretty much each buyer, and that team is involved in helping getting them to the same to the same point that we want to get to in the end. So it's not a pass the buck situation. It's not a call someone else. We just roll our sleeves up and buckle down and put it together and make it happen.
Heck yeah.
You're not gonna believe this, but we're like already like running out of time. So I want to
Fantastic.
get this in. Don't say fantastic. I knew you'd enjoy this, but we're like rolling here. I wanted to ask this question: what can future buyers do to be prepared for their mortgage?
Great question. First and foremost, try to take a look at what your credit has out there. Make sure it's accurate.
Yeah, I have a thing to add to that if you don't
Yeah.
mind. Annualcreditreport.com.
Perfect.
The federal government is required to give us access to our credit report once a year. Annualcreditreport.com. It will not give you the 3-digit number or 2-digit number if you're really bad, but it will not give you your number without paying for it. But you can see exactly what's on all 3 reports. Annualcreditreport.com.
Perfect. And then put together your budget. You know, you don't need to go down to your gas and your groceries, but it's good to have an idea of what you do spend on that. Put together a good budget and put together your credit, have an idea what's there, and then call a loan officer or call me. And then we get started on what's affordable for you, what the plan is, how much house can you buy, and determine what your max payment's going to be, and make a move.
Yes.
You should tell people if they do want to reach out to someone, especially you, how could they get a hold of you?
They can reach me at, my phone number is 614-657-7358. You're welcome to call pretty much 7 days a week if you need to reach me. And my email address is tadams@ffcb.com.
Stace, we like run out of time, but this guy, he's a mountain of information.
Unbelievable.
So we're gonna have to bring him back. Tim, are you
Of
okay
course.
with coming back because we can't get? As I told Stacy when we were going back and forth, you have too much knowledge to wrap up in half an hour.
I'd be happy to come back.
All right. Well, we're gonna bring Tim back. I would like to thank you for coming today. And if you stay tuned on Facebook Live, you're gonna see this early. You can listen to Prime Properties, and we will see you next week.